Chapter 846. Of course, Chin-ju didn't care about that. He was just curious about her thoughts. Having guo is enough for me. Tangwa smiled. You really know how to talk. A Jew, you weren't like this at the beginning. I remember that there was a person who had a catchphrase at the beginning. Chin-ju's face darkened. Chin-ju, a Daoist demon hunter. His entire life, he only hunted demons and earned money. Chin-ju hurriedly hugged her and kissed her face. Now I have another hobby, which is to spoil my wife. All right. Tangwa pointed at the storage ring. Then this is my betrothal gift to you. You can't reject it. You like to spoil your wife, and I like to spoil my husband. This is called spoiling each other. There's nothing wrong with that. Chin-ju couldn't reject it. When Guo became gentle and treated him well, he really couldn't reject her. Even if my lifespan is halved in my next life, I'm still willing to meet you. Tangwa looked at him with a smile. Don't worry, we'll meet each other every life. But if you want me to be with you, you have to perform well in each life and be obedient. You can't betray me or bully me. Then, we can live happily together. Chin-ju was a bit confused. Why don't we continue our relationship? Why do we have to start over? Because that's in your next life. Can you promise that you won't do anything to hurt me in each life? Chin-ju hurriedly stood up straight and promised seriously. I, Chin-ju, promise that as long as I can meet Guo in each life, I won't do anything to hurt Guo. If I hurt Guo, then I'll never be able to get Guo's forgiveness. I'll be single for the rest of my life and suffer for the rest of my life. Don't worry, your promise will come true. Tangwa said with a smile. She didn't follow the script at all and didn't stop Chin-ju from making his promise. If you let me down, then there's no need to talk about the consequences. It'll be very tragic. Chin-ju didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He held her little hand. You really are a hard-hearted person. You just realized. Towards people who don't treat me well and hurt me, I'm hard-hearted, she said seriously. Chin-ju believed her. Her eyes turned into crescents, filled with affection. She floated up and kissed him on the lips. As long as you're cute, I'll only treat you well. Chin-ju was about to be confused by these words. He held her hand tightly and said, I will be cute. That's fine. Tangwa was very satisfied. System, training successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining another perfect big cutie. Adieu, let's go to the next place. Tangwa floated onto Chin-ju's back. She still liked him to carry her. Chin-ju also liked to carry the ghost wife on his back. Her hands were wrapped around his neck. Her soul did not give him a cold feeling. Instead, it was warm. Chin-ju thought that his ghost wife was really powerful. Ghosts were all cold and gloomy, but she could adjust her own aura and temperature. He was lucky, he thought. Although he was not liked by his parents when he was young, his parents believed what others said and thought that he was an unlucky person. Later, when their master wanted to take him away, they happily agreed without a second thought. He didn't think that his good fortune would come later. He would get to know this unbelievably gentle female ghost who was only good to him. In this life, even if he couldn't become an immortal, he felt that it was worth it. No, he wanted to become an immortal. Only when he was strong enough would he be able to go to her place to find her. Chapter 847. The two of them went to many places and did many of the same things. She seemed to be tireless and was always interested in such things. They had already attracted the attention of all parties, but she didn't care, and he didn't care either. One day, they came to another small mountain village that they had investigated. Outside the mountain village, an old monk was sitting cross-legged on a tree stump. The old monk had a peaceful face, as if he wasn't breathing, but his face was ruddy, and one could tell that he was still alive. The old monk's body faintly emitted a gentle Buddhist light. Beside the old monk stood Fang Yunkai, who was holding a sword with a face full of hatred. Tangwa floated down from Chin-ju's back and looked at the old monk with a smile. The old monk also opened his eyes and looked at her with a pair of emotionless eyes. He stood up and chanted Amitabha. Then, he said to Tangwa, this female benefactor must be Tangwa, right? That's me. Tangwa replied. During this time, Qin Ju held her hand and stood in front of her, looking as if he wouldn't let anyone hurt her. Tang Guo was in a very good mood. She liked it when the person she liked cared about her. "Ah Ju, don't be afraid. He can't beat me. I'm stronger than him, so I can protect you." Qin Ju didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I'm not afraid." "All right, I'm afraid that he will hurt you. So don't be afraid. I'm very strong." Tang Guo raised her chin with a proud look on her face, which made him like her even more. How could his ghost wife be so adorable? He also liked it when she cared about him. "How should I address you, master? This poor monk is Ming Xian." Seeing that the two of them were walking slowly and didn't look like they were going to fight, Fang Yunkai couldn't sit still. "Master Ming Xian, why haven't you subdued this evil ghost yet?" In his opinion, Ming Xian was willing to follow him because he wanted to subdue this evil ghost. He had invited Master Ming Xian for so long, and it wasn't easy for him to agree to help. This female ghost likes to deceive people the most. "Master, it's better to quickly subdue her, lest you be deceived by her lies." Ming Xian glanced at Tang Guo and shook his head. "If the evil spirit you're talking about is Benefactor Tang, then forgive this poor monk for not being able to attack Benefactor Tang." "Why?" Fang Yunkai couldn't believe it at all. His eyes widened, and his face became hideous. "Grandmaster, she's an evil spirit. She should be taken in and her soul should be scattered." Grandmaster Ming Xian's expression was still calm. Regardless of Fang Yunqi's attitude towards him, he still smiled and said, "Benefactor Tang's body is protected by virtue, so how could he be an evil spirit? Your baleful aura is too strong, so of course you can't sense it. Your eyes are blinded by hatred, so you can't sense the faith power coming from all directions, which is continuously flowing into Benefactor Tang's soul. Not to mention that this poor monk doesn't want to attack Benefactor Tang. Even if I did, I wouldn't be a match for her. Her strength is unfathomable, and this poor monk doesn't want to deal with her. Even if I wanted to deal with her, why would I go up and humiliate myself when I know I can't?" Tang Guo laughed when she heard this. This world was really interesting. These people in the metaphysics circle were all very intelligent. They would carefully analyze cause and effect, and analyze the problem. They would never rashly make enemies and deal with someone. "Grandmaster Ming Xian, I, Fang Yunkai, admired you so much back then, but I didn't expect you to be afraid of an evil spirit. You don't deserve to be called a Buddhist expert." Grandmaster Ming Xian wasn't angry at all. He was still smiling. Chapter 848. This penniless monk has never called himself a Buddhist master. On the contrary, I feel that Benefactor Tang has a faint Buddhist aura. Only someone with such an ability can be called a Buddhist master. As for whether Benefactor Fang admires this penniless monk or not, it doesn't change much for this penniless monk. This penniless monk is not money. I can't be loved by everyone. The corners of Master Mingxuan's mouth trembled. He almost said money was RMB. Recently, he had been online so much that it almost became a catchphrase. However, he still looked at Tang Guo with a smile on his face. This female ghost looked very powerful at first glance. The faint Buddhist aura she exuded made him feel threatened. He couldn't afford to provoke her. Fortunately, the Taoist priests in the group had privately messaged him. Otherwise, he would have been tricked to death by Fang Yunkai. Fang Tianxia had tricked him many times when he was young. He always sent all kinds of ghosts to him because he couldn't refuse them. He had suffered a loss in the hands of Fang Tianxia, so he wouldn't be easily tricked by Fang Yunkai. He really wanted to show unfriendly behavior to Tang Guo. Did she think that he was easy to deceive because he didn't go online? Furthermore, this female ghost had the power of merit and the power of faith floating around her. It was clear that the things she had done seemed evil, but in fact, they were the results of good. He didn't care. He just came to take a look and see the legendary powerful female ghost. He heard that she did things according to her heart and was very arrogant. No one could stop her. Fang Yunkai was almost angered to death several times. He had been curious for a long time. Since Fang Yunkai found him, he could satisfy his curiosity. At the same time, he was a little curious. How did a female ghost and a human fall in love? Recently, the jokes on the internet were not so attractive. It was much better to watch the gossip on the spot than on the internet. Fang Yunkai was about to die of anger. He always felt that ever since Tang Guo appeared, nothing went smoothly for him. His intuition told him that as long as he killed Tang Guo, his path would be smooth. Besides, Tang Guo killed his master, so it was only right and proper for him to take revenge. Master Mingxian, are you really not willing to help catch this evil ghost? Fang Yunkai asked with a gloomy face. Mingxian still shook his head. I can't. Alright, you all said that you can't do anything about it, right? Fang Yunkai glared at Tang Guo. Then I'll do it myself. If I can't kill Tang Guo today, I can't deal with her. One day, she will fall into my hands. Mingxian shook his head inwardly. Was he dreaming? He could kill this female ghost in his dream. Great Master Mingxian, I won't send little ghosts to the temple in the future. From now on, all the ghosts that I, Fang Yunkai, encounter will die. Fang Yunkai sneered. Who told them to run into me? Mingxian couldn't wait. He was about to be tortured to death by those little ghosts that he couldn't release. This was not something he was willing to do. It was the pit that Fang Tianxia had dug for him to jump into. Almsgiver Fang, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't be so ruthless. This kind of evil spirit, it's best to get rid of it completely. Fang Yunkai could no longer listen. Since Grandmaster Mingxian is unwilling, then this Daoist will take his leave first. He took a deep look at Tang Guo and turned to leave. After Fang Yunkai left, Mingxian walked in front of Tang Guo. Just as he was about to say something, his phone rang. Then, Tang Guo saw Mingxian, the kind-looking old monk, take out his phone from his pocket and answer it skillfully. Chapter 849. My good disciple, what's the matter? Master, come back quickly. Those little ghosts are causing trouble in the temple again. We can't hold them back anymore. They're rummaging through things and jumping around in the room. They're jumping around like idiots. Master, please save your disciple. How can you go and watch the show alone and leave your poor disciple in the temple? Tang Guo heard the children's voices and looked at Mingxian with a subtle gaze. This old monk was not serious at all. Mingxian felt Tang Guo's gaze and coughed lightly. He lowered his voice and said, All right, I'll be back soon. You've only been gone for a short while and you already can't control yourself. How can this poor monk have such useless disciples like you? Master, there are hundreds of ghosts and we only have a few people. Can we hold them back? It's easy for you to say that. All right. Don't be angry. This monk will be back soon. After hanging up the phone, Mingxian bowed to Tang Guo with a smile on his face. This poor monk heard that Benefactor Tang has the complete rebirth scripture, as well as some methods to help little ghosts cross over and open the door to reincarnation. Yes, Tang Guo answered. She understood why this old monk spoke up for her in the beginning. Mingxian's smile grew wider. Benefactor Tang's Dharma is superb. This monk even admires you. To be honest, there are hundreds of troublesome little ghosts in this monk's temple. However, they are all wandering ghosts with missing memories and have never done any evil. This monk's rebirth sutra is incomplete and cannot send them into reincarnation. Therefore, this monk wishes to ask Benefactor Tang to impart the rebirth sutra and the methods to open the door to reincarnation. This request is indeed a little difficult for you, but this monk still wishes to try. No problem. Tang Guo said readily, however, I have a condition. The smile on Mingxian's face almost collapsed. He quickly stopped himself. Please speak. I have some things to do next. I'll have to trouble Master Mingxian to release those little ghosts. How about it? Mingxian's face twitched. As expected, this female ghost was not easy to deal with. She actually wanted to drag him down. However, for the sake of the Rebirth Sutra, he nodded. This monk agrees. Master Mingxian, you don't have to worry. Just watch from the side. You don't have to do anything. You just have to take care of the aftermath. Mingxian wanted to cry, right? What's the difference? Seeing Tang Guo enter the small mountain village, he did not follow her. He only took out his phone and called his disciples. Come back a little later. Yes, Benefactor Tang has already agreed. Hearing the cheers of his disciples, Ming Xian smiled again. He looked at the small mountain village filled with resentment and shook his head. Good and evil, how could it be so clear? When Tang Guo came out, there was a transparent scripture in her hand. Before Ming Xian could react, the scripture floated into his mind. In an instant, he understood all the contents of the scripture. The way he looked at Tang Guo changed again. Indeed, he could not afford to offend this female ghost. He consciously entered the small mountain village and began to release the souls from purgatory. As for the men who had been crippled, he didn't care about them. He just peacefully helped the little ghosts release their souls. As the years went by, the number of small villages became fewer and fewer. Gradually, not only did the metaphysics circle know about the existence of a female ghost called Tang Guo, but the secular world also had more legends about Tang Guo. They were all very curious about the female ghost and guessed her purpose for doing all those things. Every time they saw a case of human trafficking being exposed, their fear of this female ghost turned into admiration. Chapter 850. No matter who it was, they all wanted to know where Tang Guo was. There were always people who wanted to control her. But after more than 10 years, she was still the same. No one could control her. People in the metaphysics circle had always thought that Tang Guo's actions would cause her to be punished by the heavens. But after so many years, the heavens didn't even fart. They couldn't help but believe it. Back then, Qin Ju said that she wouldn't be punished by the heavens. This time, they all believed him. On the other hand, Fang Yunkai went everywhere to catch ghosts. Whether it was in the mountains, in the city, or even overseas, as long as there were ghosts, he would be there. He only had one attitude towards ghosts, and that was to kill them. He also got married to Ning Xiangxi. When Ning Xiangxi found out that she was really pregnant with a daughter, she vaguely felt that there was a deeper meaning to the beads that Tang Guo gave her back then. That bead looked very ordinary. Even when she took it out and said that she bought it and wanted to wear it for her daughter, Fang Yunkai didn't notice anything. She felt that this bead was not ordinary. After her daughter was born, she strung this bead on a chain and let her wear it. She also told her that no matter what, she couldn't take it off. Ning Xiangxi's daughter was called Fang Xiyun. Other than catching ghosts, Fang Yunkai was very good to Ning Xiangxi. Until now, the two of them had a good relationship. But after more than 10 years, Fang Yunkai became more and more obsessed with killing Tang Guo. He also showed no mercy to some ghosts that he accidentally encountered. Even when Ning Xiangxi tried to persuade him, he didn't listen. That year, their daughter's 16th birthday. The mother and daughter waited from noon until late at night, but Fang Yunkai still didn't come back. Seeing her daughter's disappointed expression, Ning Xiangxi patted her head sadly. Your father is just very busy. Mom, why is it like this every time? Fang Xiyun didn't understand why Fang Yunkai was so obsessed with catching ghosts and killing all of them. I don't think all ghosts are bad. Dad always kills all kinds of ghosts. He even forgets my birthday. How many times has he done this? Ever since I was young, he has never celebrated my birthday with me. Ning Xiangxi didn't know how to explain. She could only comfort her. Your father has his own beliefs. We have to respect him. It's the same for Mom to celebrate your birthday with you. All right, Mom, I know what you're saying. You don't feel good about it, right? Other people's parents are together every day, but mine only sees my father a few times a year. You feel worse than me. Mom, let's blow out the candles and make a wish. Seeing that her daughter didn't mind, Ning Xiangxi was a little happier. The next day, Fang Yunkai came back. When he returned, he told the mother and daughter, I killed quite a number of evil spirits this time. Congratulations then. Ning Xiangxi looked at Fang Yunqi's excited face and said in a displeased tone. Fang Yunkai noticed this and quickly hugged Ning Xiangxi. Xiangxi, what's wrong? Are you angry? Shouldn't I be angry? Ning Xiangxi frowned. Have you forgotten what day it was yesterday? What day was it yesterday? Seeing Fang Yunkai in deep thought, Ning Xiangxi felt a little angry. Fang Xiyun couldn't help but ask, what day is it? Dad, did you forget my birthday again? You always forget my birthday because you're busy catching ghosts. It's fine if you don't celebrate it with me, but you can't even remember it. I'm sorry, Cece. It's my fault. Fang Yunkai apologized. Fang Siyun was angry. Not all ghosts are bad. I think the legendary female ghost, Tang Guo, is quite good. I really don't understand. Slap. Fang Siyun didn't expect to be slapped when she was talking. She widened her eyes and looked at Fang Yunkai. You hit me. Chapter 851. How dare you hit me? Fang Siyun roared. She looked aggrieved and tears rolled down her cheeks. Ning Xiangxi did not expect that she would be slapped by Fang Yunkai for no reason on the second day of her daughter's birthday. Fang Yunkai, what are you doing? Ning Xiangxi shouted. Are you crazy? When Fang Yunkai saw Fang Siyun's aggrieved and teary face, he regretted slapping her. Cece, don't call me that. I don't have a father like you. You never celebrated my birthday with me because you were busy catching ghosts. Now, you hit me for no reason. Fang Siyun covered her red and swollen cheek. I finally understand that in your eyes, my mother and I are not as important as you catching ghosts. All these years, ever since I can remember, you have never celebrated my birthday with me. Forget about me, you don't even remember my mother's birthday every year. You always come back every few days and tell me excitedly how many ghosts you have killed. Kill ghosts, kill ghosts. In your eyes, there are only ghosts. I only mentioned the legendary Tang Guo and you hit me. You are too extreme. She is good to begin with. You. Slap. What Ning Xiangxi and Fang Siyun did not expect was that Fang Yunkai would slap her again. Fang Yunkai. Ning Xiangxi pushed Fang Yunkai away and hugged Fang Siyun, who was slapped on the other side of her face. Her eyes were red. What does this have to do with Cece? Do you have to hit me like this? Cece is telling the truth. All these years, besides catching ghosts, how much time have you spent at home? Fang Siyun stopped crying and glared at Fang Yunkai. Very well, you hit me again. Fang Yunkai, from today onwards, I, Fang Siyun, don't have a father like you. With that, she pushed Ning Xiangxi away and ran into the room. She grabbed her bag and rushed out. Ning Xiangxi's expression was ugly. I'll chase after her. Fang Yunkai quickly pulled her back. Why chase after her? She's already an adult, but she can't even speak properly. She deserves to be hit. Tang Guo is not a good ghost. She is an evil ghost. Sooner or later, I will catch her and kill her. I don't know who was the one who spread those misleading messages that made so many people worship a ghost. It's too funny. Even my daughter admires a ghost. What a joke. I, Fang Yunkai, am a ghost-catching daoist, but my daughter admires a ghost. What a joke. Does Fang Siyun know that she is humiliating me? Fang Yunkai said with a frown on his face. I think you're the funny one. You're the unreasonable one. Ning Xiangxi looked at the stubborn Fang Yunkai and couldn't help but recall the words of those seniors many years ago, telling her to leave Fang Yunkai. She used to care so much about this relationship and thought that she would be able to persuade Fang Yunkai. Unexpectedly, on the third day of their marriage, he received a mission saying that evil spirits were causing trouble. Despite her attempts to stop him, he insisted on leaving during their honeymoon. Back then, she understood Fang Yunqi's actions, and she also felt pity for him. After all, from his perspective, it was understandable for him to do those things. However, later on, they only saw each other a few times a year. Even though they had only known each other for a short period of time, she could still feel that their feelings for each other had not changed. However, who didn't want to see the person they liked all the time? When Fang Siyun was born, she was in pain in the hospital for half a day. She also called Fang Yunkai and he promised to come back immediately. Chapter 852. She thought that Fang Yunkai would be able to make it this time. She didn't expect that he would only come back 10 days after her daughter was born. As soon as he came back, he was so tired that he fell asleep. She raised Fang Siyun almost all by herself. Fang Yunkai would always stay for 3 or 4 days and then leave in a hurry. Sometimes, he would leave in the middle of the night. They lived like this for more than 10 years. No matter how passionate their feelings were, they were almost worn out. However, Fang Yunkai always thought that they were still in love. Well, they had only been together for about a year in the past 10 years. Weren't they still in love? Fang Yunqi's time didn't pass at all. He gave all his time to those ghosts. Killing ghosts was more important than her. Killing ghosts was more important than their daughter, Fang Siyun. After thinking through all this, Ning Xiangxi's love for Fang Yunkai almost disappeared. She broke free from Fang Yunqi's hand. Fang Yunkai, this time, I hope you'll think it through. Do you want to catch ghosts or do you want this family? Xiangxi, you should understand me. Ning Xiangxi's eyes turned red and tears flowed out uncontrollably. She looked up at Fang Yunkai. It's been more than 10 years. Isn't it enough? Fang Yunkai, I've been by your side. I gave birth to Fang Siyun for you and took care of the entire family alone. Don't I understand you enough? You don't spend more than a month at home in a year. Go out and ask around. Who can stand such a life? I had an illness and couldn't get up. I could only call my parents. Later, I was afraid that they would ask about you, so I could only call the ambulance myself. When I went to my daughter's parent-teacher conference, the other classmates thought that Cici was from a single-parent family. Because of this, Cici was unhappy for a long time, but I told her every time to respect and understand her father. Fang Yunkai, we've understood you for more than 10 years. Cici is already 16 years old. Did she say something wrong? She just touched the pain in your heart. You can't accept that the world worships a ghost that you can't kill. Fang Yunkai raised his hand and was about to hit her, but Ning Xiangxi did not even try to dodge. With tears in her eyes, she said, "So, now that you've beaten Cici away, you're going to hit me?" "No, that's not it." Fang Yunkai looked into Ning Xiangxi's desperate eyes and felt his heart empty, as if he had lost something. He quickly grabbed Ning Xiangxi's hand and said, "Cici, I'll spend more time with you in the future. I won't go out so often." Ning Xiangxi flung his hand away. "Do you think this is what I'm angry about? Think about it carefully. I'm going to look for Cici. If you haven't figured it out, don't be in such a hurry to leave this time. Let's get a divorce first. I don't want to live this kind of widowed life anymore. With or without you, Cici and I would still be fine." Chapter 853. So fast. When Tangguo heard the system's voice, she was confused for a moment. How did so much time pass in such a short time? System, it's a long story, this host. Tangguo came back to her senses. All right, I understand. The system was a little curious. How was the host going to say goodbye to this cutie Qinju? After all, Qinju had always been obedient to the host. The host couldn't bear to see him sad, right? Well, that might not be the case. It didn't have much hope for the host's conscience. Adieu. There's still more than a year. I have to leave. Qinju's heart tightened. He held her hand. I know. He counted the days every day. With 1 year less, he panicked a little. He had some hope that she had already forgotten about leaving. Are you really leaving? I have to. Tangguo looked up and smiled. Although the heavens here don't dare to punish me, I can't go against everything. There are some things that I can't understand for now. However, as long as she lived on, she would slowly understand everything. Adieu, don't be sad. I'm not. Liar. Qinju held her face and kissed it. I'm very sad. I can't even lie to you. What made you leave? Can't we fight back even if we work together? No. Tangguo shook her head. Don't be delusional. Qinju thought to himself. Wasn't he delusional? Then I'll look for you in the future. Where are you going to look for me? Tangguo smiled. Qinju said directly, the ghost world. You can't find me there. This time, I reincarnated directly. System, alright, I understand now. So the host wants to use reincarnation to trick this guy. If that's the case, it's indeed more acceptable. If she said that she reincarnated, Qinju wouldn't look for her. If he couldn't find her in the end, he would definitely go crazy. Reincarnation? Qin Ju didn't expect her to give such an answer. Yes, reincarnation. Tang Guo said. So, don't look for me. Just live this life peacefully. You'll be able to meet me in your next life. Is that so? Qin Ju was a little suspicious. She had reincarnated so early, but he still had to live until the end of his life before reincarnating. He hesitated for a moment before asking, we reincarnated at different times. Will there be a big difference in age? Tang Guo, what is in this guy's head? Qin Ju thought of a terrifying possibility. If I didn't come, would you like someone else? When I came, you would have grandchildren and great-grandchildren. What would I do then? System, if you're not of the same mind, you won't enter the same house. That won't happen. It's very difficult for someone to impress me like Ajiu. There was almost no one who could only love her like this. It was so pure that they could even put down their principles and dignity. Of course, if she could get the person she liked, she would protect his principles and dignity. Even if they liked each other, they should respect each other. If Ajiu thinks that I'm an old woman and despises me, you can find a young one. But don't ever appear in front of me again. No, why would I find someone else? You're an old woman, and I should be an old man. We're a match made in heaven. System, awareness, this is awareness. No wonder this guy could win the host's heart. Chapter 854. Tang Guo was very satisfied. She was happy to hear sweet nothings. She held Qin Ju's hand. After I leave, don't look around blindly. I'm definitely not in the ghost realm. If I say I reincarnated, I'll definitely reincarnate. As long as you're sincere, you'll definitely meet me in your next life. I will. In my next life, I'll find Guo first. I won't let anyone get hurt. Tang Guo smiled. Ever since she woke up, no one could hurt her anymore. No matter if it was injuries or sadness, no one could make her sad. If something really serious happened, she would at most be a little unhappy for a while. Her biggest emotion now was happiness. The better her mood, the bigger her emotions. Let's go see Fang Tianxia and see how he's doing. Qin Ju was a little surprised. Guo can find him? Of course. I was the one who got his soul out. Isn't it easy to find out where he is? In order to let him experience the sad days of being a ghost, I even did a lot of things. For example, he doesn't know that any daoist with lower cultivation than me can't catch him. At the same time, he doesn't have any abilities. Even those who raise ghosts think he's trash when they meet him. Tang Guo brought Qin Ju to a small town. In a corner of the town, they saw Fang Tianxia with a frightened face. He had just avoided a ghost-catching daoist and was hiding in the corner, not daring to move at all. It wasn't that he didn't want to find another place, but when he ran over, he didn't notice the sun today. He only felt a piercing pain in his soul. When he stood in the corner, he realized that the sun was everywhere. Only this small place was dark. He was very afraid of the sun. When the sun shone on his body, it would hurt. Although he knew that he wouldn't die from being exposed to the sun, that kind of pain wasn't hard to endure. He realized that his soul wouldn't scatter because of the sun. It was because he was escaping from the pursuit of a daoist. That daoist was ferocious. When he saw him, he didn't ask anything and directly attacked him with his sword. In the past, there were many Taoists who wanted to take him in, but they would ask for his name. They would even calculate whether he had done anything bad. In the end, when they saw that he seemed to have a bad aura, they decided to kill him. However, over the years, he had seen a crazy daoist who would kill any ghost he saw without any regard for cause and effect. Even if it was a weak ghost like him, he would still be able to slash it with his sword. The other party was very strong. In fact, he didn't know how he managed to escape. In short, he was very lucky every time. He was always able to escape from the swords of those Taoists. He didn't like sunlight. When sunlight shone on his soul body, it was too painful. He wouldn't harm anyone. He didn't remember who he was, but he subconsciously felt that he shouldn't harm anyone. At first, when he saw the little ghosts around him being captured, he didn't know why, but he had a feeling that they deserved to be captured. Later on, after living a life of escape every day, he gradually felt that those Taoists were really too annoying. Especially when he clearly didn't do anything bad, nor did he harm anyone, nor did he try to confuse people. However, those Taoist priests were unreasonable, especially that vicious Taoist priest. Those people all called him Master Fang. That vicious aura was even more terrifying than a little brat like him. How could he be called a master? He couldn't understand why these Taoist priests were so unreasonable. They killed every ghost they saw. Chapter 855. Of course, the one with the surname Fang was still the most annoying. Tang Guo stood at the side, holding hands with Qin Ju. She looked at Fang Tianqi's ghost, who seemed to be deep in thought. The sun shone on him, and he hurriedly pressed his legs against the wall. His entire ghost seemed to be stuck to the wall. He doesn't have any memories? Qin Ju asked. Tang Guo smiled. If he had memories, how could he have such an exciting experience? I thought that Guo Guo had already destroyed his soul. At least, with his soul form, he would have been taken away by someone else. For example, he would have been killed by Fang Yunkai. He thought that his ghost wife would be able to take revenge without any pressure. He didn't think that it wouldn't be like that. I'm a person who doesn't care about that. Besides, with such a deliberate plan, they wouldn't understand the pain that their actions have brought to many innocent ghosts. Tang Guo looked at Fang Tianqi, who was still hiding from the sun. Compared to directly destroying them, I think it's more interesting to overturn their outlook on life. The outlook on life that has been established for many years suddenly collapses one day. Who would be able to stand it? She was all smiles, but a cold wind seemed to blow past her. The system trembled. The host was still the same host. Even if she was living in sweet love, she would still do whatever she wanted. Don't expect her to be merciful to her enemies. Then Guo Guo came to find Fang Tianqi today. What plans do you have? Qin Ju could vaguely guess. You want to restore his memories? Tang Guo kissed Qin Ju. Ah Ju, you've become smarter. You even know what I want to do. Qin Ju's expression was unnatural. Was he stupid in the past? Tang Guo and Qin Ju walked out from the shade of the tree and came in front of Fang Tianqi. At first, Fang Tianqi thought that Qin Ju and Tang Guo were just passing by, so he didn't care. He knew that humans couldn't see ghosts, unless it was a special occasion. But after a while, he realized that the two of them were looking at him. That's right, they were looking at him. He was shocked, and his expression was nervous. He tiptoed against the wall and looked at the two of them cautiously. You can see me? Yeah. Tang Guo nodded. Are you surprised? Fang Tianqi hesitated for a moment before asking, you guys are also ghost hunters. Are you planning to kill me? Moreover, his movements were already showing signs of wanting to run away. It could be seen that he had encountered such situations many times over the years and had already become a subconscious action. Hearing this, Tang Guo burst into laughter. Fang Tianqi probably didn't expect that he, a Daoist ghost hunter, would be afraid of a Daoist ghost hunter when he became a ghost. No, I'm not a ghost-catching Taoist, Tang Guo said. Neither is he. He's a demon-catching Taoist, not a ghost-catching Taoist. Fang Tianqi heaved a sigh of relief. He thought about it and agreed. If the two of them were here to catch ghosts, they would have charged at him. He didn't know why, but no matter where he went, there would always be Taoists who smelled his scent and said that he had committed too many sins and harmed too many people. They wanted to kill him. He clearly didn't harm anyone, but those Taoist priests said that he had a murderous aura on him. Only murderous ghosts would produce murderous aura. No matter how he explained, those stinky Taoist priests wouldn't listen. Then what are the two of you doing here? Haven't you seen other people in love? Tang Guo said with a smile. I'm holding hands with my boyfriend. Of course we're dating and going shopping. Fang Tianqi felt that it was unbelievable. Chapter 856. Fang Tianqi couldn't ask, so he just stood at the foot of the wall and watched the two talk and laugh, as if they were really in a relationship. The doubts in his heart gradually disappeared. These two shouldn't be here to harm him. Over the years, many ghosts he knew had been killed by those stinky Taoists. If he wasn't a little special, he would have been killed by them. I wonder if those Taoists really want to catch ghosts or use the name of catching ghosts to cultivate the Tao of killing. Fang Tianxia thought to himself. Half an hour later, Tang Guo and Qin Ju left hand in hand. Tang Guo looked at Fang Tianxia and said with a smile, "Fang Tianxia, good luck." Fang Tianxia was confused. Fang Tianxia, she was calling him Fang Tianxia, so his name was Fang Tianxia. Did she know him? However, why was his surname Fang? It reminded him of that stinky Daoist called Fang Yunkai. If it wasn't for his good luck, he would have been turned to ashes. Now, when he heard the surname Fang, he felt uncomfortable. Now that he knew his surname was also Fang, he felt very awkward. However, how did that woman know that he was called Fang Tianxia? Just as he was about to chase after her and ask her about it, his mind suddenly became chaotic and he stood there motionless. In a short minute, Fang Tianxia's mind was blank. A minute later, countless images flashed through his mind. These images were his memories. He instantly understood. He squatted in the corner and seriously received the memories. He was a little happy. He had never had his own memories. He had asked the other ghosts and they more or less had their memories when they were alive. He was still very disappointed about this. About 10 minutes later, Fang Tianxia was no longer as happy as he was at the beginning. He was still squatting in the corner with a complicated expression. He stared in the direction that Tang Guo left and the aura on his body instantly changed. His appearance also returned to his original appearance. His originally timid temperament suddenly became magnanimous and his face became much more righteous. He didn't look like a ghost at all, but more like a Daoist. He remembered. His name was Fang Tianxia and he had been learning ghost-catching Daoist techniques since he was young. He hated ghosts because their village had been occupied by evil ghosts. In the end, he was the only one left and was picked up by his master. However, he also knew that ghosts that didn't kill people couldn't move. No matter who Gui Sho was, he would care, regardless of karma. At that time, he believed that ghosts should not kill people, regardless of the cause and effect. Therefore, when Tang Lusheng found him, he did not hesitate to get rid of the harmful female ghost. Even after he figured out the reason, he didn't feel guilty at all. That ghost had harmed people, so it was not wrong for him to kill it. Later on, he met Tang Guo. He thought that he could easily kill this young ghost. He didn't expect that the other party would be able to subdue him so easily. He thought that the other party would directly kill him, the kind where his soul would scatter. However, she only extracted his soul from his body, sealed his memories, and gave him a very special ability. No Daoist priest could kill him. Of course, he also cast a layer of murderous aura on his body. No matter what Daoist priest saw him, they would think that he had killed someone in his ghost form and would not hesitate to attack him. For the next decade or so, he experienced the feeling of being chased by a Daoist priest. Just now, he was complaining that those Taoist priests wanted to kill him without any reason. Chapter 857. Fang Tianxia didn't know how to describe his mood, but it wasn't good. His outlook on life had been overturned by a female ghost. His body had long been buried by Fang Yunkai, and now it was rotten. He was really just a ghost now. Thinking about how Fang Yunkai had chased after him all these years, his expression turned ugly. Also, he knew a few ghosts, and they had a good relationship, but they were all killed by Fang Yunkai. If Tang Guo hadn't done something to him, he would have been killed by Fang Yunkai. Fang Tianxia stood in the corner where the sun couldn't reach, thinking about something. Only when the sun went down did he raise his head. He looked at the lights on the street and finally sighed, smiling bitterly. Wrong. He understood. He and Fang Yunkai both thought that as long as they killed ghosts, they would be able to return peace to the human world. He was a little better, as he only killed ghosts. But his disciple, who he raised, became so extreme because of him, killing all kinds of ghosts without distinguishing between right and wrong. All of this was because of his mistake in teaching him. Just like Song Xiaoyun, who was killed by him, He later found out that it was Tang Lusheng's new wife who killed her. A dead ghost would definitely want to take revenge. Just like his disciple Fang Yunkai, didn't he want to take revenge on Tangguo because he was killed by Tangguo? Originally, all of this could have been changed. But because of what he did, all of the karma was attached to Fang Yunkai, and in the end, Fang Yunkai walked on his old path, and was even more extreme than him. What could he do now? Fang Tianxia was a little confused, standing in place without moving. What will Fang Tianxia do? Qin Ju asked curiously. Tangguo shook her head and smiled. Do you think I'm a god? In my heart, Guoguo is a fairy who fell from the sky, more powerful than a god. TSK, Daoist Qin's sweet talk is getting smoother and smoother. Did you eat honey in your mouth? Qin Ju smiled and kissed the corner of Tangguo's lips, saying, didn't you just eat honey? Daoist Qin, didn't we agree to only catch ghosts to earn money? Catching ghosts to earn money and spoiling my wife don't conflict. Daoist Qin, you're amazing. You flatter me. I'm really happy to be praised by Guoguo. Qin Ju held Tangguo's hand tightly. Let me carry you, Guoguo. I like the way you lean on my back. That way, her entire body would be on top of him, owned by him, and he wouldn't feel that she could float away at any time. Tangguo lay on his back and wrapped her arms around his neck. The two of them strolled like this, enjoying each other's warmth. Tangguo almost fell asleep. She was suddenly jolted awake. What jolted her awake was none other than the bead that she had given Ning Xiangxi years ago. What happened? Do you still remember that pearl? A defensive bead for Ning Xiangxi? Ning Xiangxi told me that Master Mingxian would come looking for me, so I sent him off. Qin Ju no longer believed her nonsense. She clearly had her own thoughts. What happened? Is it Ning Xiangxi or her daughter, Fang Xiyun? Fang Xiyun. Do you want to go? Qin Ju was indeed the one who understood her the best. She would definitely go wherever there was excitement. Go, of course I'm going. It's a waste not to watch. Ning Xiangxi couldn't find Fang Xiyun, and no one answered her calls. In the end, she had no choice but to look for Fang Yunkai. Fang Yunkai didn't care at first, but 3 days had passed and Fang Xiyun still hadn't returned. He had no choice but to read Fang Xiyun's fortune. After reading it, his expression changed. Chapter 858. What did you calculate? What happened to Cici? The moment she saw Fang Yunqi's expression change, Ning Xiangxi had a bad premonition. She grabbed Fang Yunkai and hurriedly asked. Seeing that Fang Yunqi's face was dark and he was still calculating, she was so anxious that her eyes turned red. Under normal circumstances, Fang Yunkai wouldn't do it a second time. There must be something wrong, so he had to do it a second time. This was because he did not want to believe the result of the first calculation. Fang Yunkai, tell me, what happened to Cici? Fang Yunkai stopped. Seeing that Ning Xiangxi's tears were flowing, he quickly bit his finger and used the special blood connection method to determine Fang Xiyun's direction. Let's go find Cici immediately. Fang Yunkai only said this one sentence. No matter how Ning Xiangxi asked, he did not say anything. Ning Xiangxi's heart sank. When Fang Yunkai grabbed her, she did not resist. In the current situation, she did not want to make any trouble. Everything could wait until she found her daughter. What happened to Cici? Ning Xiangxi was about to break down. All these years, she had single-handedly raised Fang Xiyun. In her heart, her daughter was actually more important than Fang Yunkai. If something happened to Cici because of your karma, Fang Yunkai, I will never forgive you. Ning Xiangxi regretted. She regretted not listening to the advice of the seniors and not continuing with Fang Yunkai. She was not afraid of karma, but she did not expect that karma might end up with her daughter in the end. If she could do it all over again, she would definitely not be with Fang Yunkai. If you did not hit Cici yesterday, she would not be in trouble. She was sure that something had happened to Fang Xiyun. Otherwise, Fang Yunkai would not have such an expression. Although Fang Yunqi's Dao techniques were good, he could not really fly. The two of them could only drive in a certain direction. When they reached some small roads, they had to walk. As they walked, Ning Xiangxi suddenly froze. Why do I feel like I've been here before? She hurriedly looked at her surroundings, but couldn't recall anything for the time being. But when she walked in front of a big tree, her face turned pale. She only felt that her vision turned black, and she almost fainted. Fang Yunkai quickly hugged her, not letting her fall. Ning Xiangxi looked at that familiar place. It was still that backward and familiar village. She cried out miserably. Why is it still here? Why is it still here? Didn't she cripple all the men here? I really regret it. She regretted stopping Tang Guo back then. Why didn't she let her kill everyone here? That might not be the case. Fang Yunkai held his sword and quickly rushed into the village. He had already sensed Fang Xiyun's aura here. He brought Ning Xiangxi and kicked open a door. Inside were 3 young, strong men and a pale, skinny old woman with almost white hair. Beside the old woman sat a gloomy old man. Facing Fang Yunqi's sudden intrusion, the whole family was very surprised. They all stood up and stared at Fang Yunkai and Ning Xiangxi warily. Fang Yunqi's face was already very old, and the sharp aura around his body made the people in the room not dare to move. Especially when he was dressed as a daoist, it gave them a great shock. Chapter 859. Although Ning Xiangxi's face had matured a lot compared to 10 years ago, because she knew how to take care of herself, there weren't many changes. When the old woman saw Ning Xiangxi's face, she took a step back in fright. You are Ning Xiangxi? The old woman recognized Ning Xiangxi, but Ning Xiangxi didn't recognize the old woman. At this moment, Tang Guo and Qin Ju also rushed over. A human and a ghost walked into the house hand in hand. The moment Tang Guo appeared, everyone in the house was trembling. Especially when they saw Tang Guo's smiling face, they were all trembling. The old man instinctively closed his legs, and the 3 strong men's legs were shaking. Seeing that Tang Guo didn't look away and kept staring at them, they were so scared that they peed their pants. Mother, it's that female ghost. Mother, what should we do? It's that female ghost. Tang Guo looked at the old woman and walked forward. The old woman was so scared that she fell to the ground. She thought of something and quickly knelt in front of Tang Guo, her face full of tears. It's my fault, it's all my fault. If you want to kill me, kill me. Let my 3 sons go. Long time no see, Li Maiyun. Back then, you were lucky to escape from here. Later, I heard that people outside helped you without any hesitation. They found a place for you to stay and a job for you. Many people took good care of you. Li Maiyun's lips trembled, but she didn't say anything. But why did you come back? You came back to this barren place and buried you here forever. What do you think those who wanted to be saved but died of despair in the end would think? The system was also shocked. Was this the Li Maiyun who couldn't bear to part with her 3 children back then? Now, you have indeed taken the old path. In order to get wives for your 3 sons, you harmed innocent girls. Li Maiyun couldn't say a word. The old man beside her only looked at Tang Guo in horror, not saying a word. Because Li Maiyun was taken away back then, he chased after her on the same day, so he was the only man in the village who didn't lose his manhood. After that, he finally managed to bring Li Maiyun and his 3 sons back with him after much coaxing. He thought that this female ghost wouldn't come back. After all, more than 10 years had passed. They didn't expect that the female ghost would be attracted by something they had just done. They all regretted it. Among the 3 strong men, the older one still had memories, while the younger one didn't. They had all heard about how terrifying Tang Guo was. Did you guys harm Cici? Ning Xiangxi also remembered Li Maiyun. She rushed in front of Li Maiyun and grabbed her, saying fiercely, "Where's my Cici? Give me back my Cici." Li Maiyun's face turned even paler. "What Cici? I don't know. Tell me, where did my Cici go?" How could Ning Xiangxi not tell? The other party's eyes were flickering. Cici must have been locked up here before. I really regret it, Li Maiyun. Ning Xiangxi cried painfully. I really shouldn't have been so kind back then. If all of you had died, my Cici wouldn't have been in trouble. Li Maiyun didn't expect that the girl named Fang Siyun was actually Ning Xiangxi's daughter. She glanced at Fang Yunkai, who was standing beside Ning Xiangxi. She was the Taoist priest's daughter. She really regretted it. If she had known, she wouldn't have tricked that girl. Now, how could they hand her over? Chapter 860. Therefore, no matter what, she could not admit it. At this moment, Fang Yunqi's sword fell on Li Meiyun's neck. The cold touch scared Li Meiyun so much that she fell to the ground. Tell me, where is Fang Siyun? At this moment, Fang Yunkai was full of anger. Li Meiyun panicked and said, She ran away. Where did she run to? Fang Yunkai did not move away. He pressed hard on Li Meiyun's neck, and a bloody mark appeared instantly. Feeling the pain on her neck, Li Meiyun did not dare to hide anything. She explained the cause and effect clearly. It turned out that she saw Fang Siyun in the town at the foot of the mountain. She saw that Fang Siyun looked very lonely. She thought that her 3 sons were all at the age of marrying a wife. It was getting harder and harder to buy a wife now. There were many useless men in the village. If they wanted the village to continue, they were still secretly doing these things. They had always been careful and were more secretive than before. For more than 10 years, no one found out. But even so, the success rate was getting smaller and smaller. Because of the existence of Tangguo and what she did, many people did not dare to do these things anymore. Moreover, young girls nowadays were not easy to fool. If they felt something was wrong, they would immediately leave. Few of the boys who grew up in the village had wives. Even if they were lucky and bought or cheated, they did not dare to torture or even kill people like in the past. However, in order to continue the village, they would take turns to give birth to children for the men in the village. They were afraid of being found out and causing the tragedy in the past. When some girls gave birth, they did not dare to send them to the hospital. In the end, they died. This time, when she saw Fang Siyun, she had not seen such a beautiful girl for a long time. She wanted to trick her back and give her 3 sons. Fang Siyun heard her say that the scenery in the village was good, but she was absent-minded. After she persuaded her, she finally agreed to come up. As soon as she came up, she was controlled by them. They did not dare to torture her anymore. They took good care of her. Every day, they tried to persuade Fang Siyun, hoping that she would agree. It was not easy for Fang Siyun to give in. When they relaxed, she actually ran away. She was not familiar with the road, so she ran up the mountain. They did not expect Fang Siyun to be so stubborn that she jumped down without thinking. They wanted to stop her, but it was too late. In the end, they could only go home anxiously and close the door. They were very uneasy because there was once a very powerful female ghost who jumped down from that cliff. They were very afraid. What if Fang Siyun also became a powerful female ghost and came back to kill them and kill all the people in the village? They had never thought that Fang Yunkai would appear at this time and kick their door open, giving them no time to prepare. What made them even more afraid? Of that powerful female ghost, the female ghost. When Ning Xiangxi heard this, she was already sobbing. She said that she regretted it and hurriedly asked Tang Guo, "Can you take me to that cliff?" "Let's go," Tang Guo said. She looked at the family and smiled faintly. She shook her head. She had already given Li Meiyun a chance. So many people wanted to help her was a waste. She had nothing to say to this kind of person. She didn't want to do anything. Chapter 861. This matter was related to Fang Yunkai. She wanted to see what Fang Yunkai wanted to do. "Xiangxi, go and find Cici first. I still need to ask them some things." Ning Xiangxi didn't think too much about it. She just followed Tang Guo to the cliff. "Miss Tang, can you walk faster? What if Cici is still alive?" Ning Xiangxi's face was full of tears. "If only I didn't stop you back then. It's all my fault." All these years, she had been doing charity work every month to help Fang Yunkai get rid of the karma. However, the karma still landed on her daughter. Even if the karma landed on her, it was fine. Cici was still so young. The more she thought about it, the more Ning Xiangxi couldn't forgive herself. She couldn't forgive herself for stubbornly wanting to be with Fang Yunkai. If she wasn't with Fang Yunkai, would Cece not have encountered all these? Tang Guo flew faster and said, as long as Fang Xiyun is Fang Yunqi's daughter, she wouldn't have landed here today. She would have landed somewhere else. Ning Xiangxi was speechless. That was right. That was the most complicated karma. She wiped her tears and quickly climbed up the mountain. Soon, she arrived at the cliff. This was also the place where the original owner had fallen. Ning Xiangxi wasn't afraid of heights at all. She stood at the edge of the dangerous cliff and looked down. How should I go down to find Cece? I'll bring you down, Tang Guo said. Since she was already here, she wanted to see what happened to her body. System, dear host, Fang Yunqi's system was hesitant. Tang Guo found it funny. What are you trying to say? Fang Yunkai killed all the members of that family. The system had expected this, but it also felt that Fang Yunkai had double standards. He always said that ghosts hurt people, but he never cared about people hurting people. Now that things had happened to him, he had no choice but to kill people with his own hands. So, what was Fang Yunqi's persistence for all these years? Oh, that's expected. Tang Guo wasn't surprised. Many people were kind to others and spoke of justice. They believed that everything had to be done according to the rules. However, there were many things that did not happen to them at all. When such a terrible thing happened to them, they would be crazier than anyone else. When Tang Guo was about to take Ning Xiangxi down, Fang Yunkai rushed up. Acacia. Fang Yunqi's body still reeked of blood. I'll take you down to find Cece. Ning Xiangxi did not resist and allowed Fang Yunkai to hug her. She did not expect anything from the man beside her. She only prayed that Fang Xiyun was still alive. As long as Fang Xiyun was still alive, she would raise Fang Xiyun alone for the rest of her life. As for Fang Yunkai, she was a little tired. She couldn't afford to love this man anymore. She was afraid that if she continued to be entangled with him, all sorts of terrifying things would happen to her Cece for the rest of her life. Fang Yunkai did not know what Ning Xiangxi was thinking. He held the sword in one hand and scraped the wall of the cliff, bringing Ning Xiangxi down. Tang Guo and Qin Ju also jumped down together. Qin Ju knew about the defensive pearl and naturally understood that Fang Xiyun's life would not be in danger. He looked at Tang Guo's nonchalant expression and smiled. He kissed her cheek. Do what? I want to kiss you. Adieu, this is called being a hooligan in public. Qin Ju laughed softly and kissed her again. Chapter 862. His Guoguo was really too likable. He liked how casual she was. No matter what she did it based on her heart. She would not find a reason to do anything except for revenge. What a coincidence. Tang Guo looked at Fang Xiyun, who was hanging on the cliff. It happened to be where her body used to be. She could not help but say, the place where I used to live. System, the host is probably going to die of laughter. Fang Xiyun was already in a daze. At that time, she hardened her heart and jumped down. When she felt the feeling of falling, she thought that she would not be able to survive. In the midst of the rapid fall, she saw a stone protruding out. At that time, she thought that this sharp stone would definitely pierce through her body and kill her. However, she did not expect that the stone did not pierce through her body. It only hung on her clothes. At that time, she noticed that the bead on her neck flashed. This ordinary-looking bead was given to her by her mother. Since she was young, she had worn it on her neck and told her not to take it off. She was not allowed to take it off even when she was bathing. Once, when the weather was hot, she wanted to take the bead off and made Ning Xiangxi angry. Ning Xiangxi had been with her since she was young. The thing she hated the most was seeing Ning Xiangxi angry. She promised that she would never take it off again. Ning Xiangxi told her and her father that she bought this bead. She thought it looked good, so she let her wear it. However, she felt that Ning Xiangxi's attitude towards this bead was not what she said. Today, when she was hanging on the cliff, she finally understood that this bead was not simple. It could be said that it had saved her life. However, If she was hanging here, who would know that she was here? The stone had passed through the back of her clothes. She was afraid that she would starve to death here. When people outside found her, she would probably be dried up by the wind. The weather was still very hot. The sun shone down. She was thirsty and tired. She fell asleep in a daze. When she was almost awake, she heard a very pleasant voice saying, "What a coincidence, and the place where I used to live." She opened her eyes, wanting to find the person who had spoken. In reality, she thought that she was dreaming or hearing things. However, she still wanted to live. She should not have listened to that old woman. Otherwise, this would not have happened. Cece. When Ning Xiangxi saw Fang Xiyun hanging from a rock with her hands hanging by her side, her heart skipped a beat. Tears immediately flowed out of her eyes. However, when she saw Fang Xiyun move, she cried out in surprise. "Mother!" Fang Xiyun really thought she was dreaming this time, but she still raised her head and saw Ning Xiangxi and Fang Yunkai approaching her. She was so happy that she wanted to shout. As soon as she raised her hand, she heard the sound of her clothes being torn apart, and her body fell straight down. Fang Yunkai and Ning Xiangxi did not expect this. No matter how fast Fang Yunkai was, he could not catch up. Ning Xiangxi shouted anxiously, "No!" Tang Guo sneered and waved her hand at the place where Fang Xiyun fell. Fang Xiyun's body slowly floated up. She heard that sneer. She looked up and saw Tang Guo and Qin Ju. "So, what's the use of being a ghost-catching daoist? You're not even as useful as me." Tang Guo let Fang Xiyun float beside her as she said, "We are fated to meet." Chapter 863. Fang Xiyun blinked her eyes. She was still wondering if this beautiful woman was a ghost. She glanced at Fang Yunkai subconsciously. He didn't look too good, but he didn't say anything. When he saw her, he heaved a sigh of relief. "That place, I was once hung there, exposed to the elements for many years." Tang Guo pointed to the place where Fang Xiyun was hanging just now. "But I'm dead, and you're alive." Ning Xiangxi also heaved a sigh of relief. She looked at Tang Guo with gratitude in her eyes. If it wasn't the right time, she would have hugged Fang Xiyun and cried. They floated to the top of the cliff. Ning Xiangxi quickly broke free from Fang Yunkai and hugged Fang Xiyun tightly. "Cece, are you okay? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" "Mom, I'm fine." Fang Xiyun knew that she was in the wrong this time. "I'm sorry to have made you worry. I won't run away from home in the future." She glanced at Fang Yunkai and lowered her head again. She didn't want to talk to him. She would always remember those 2 slaps. Her father abandoned his wife and children in order to catch ghosts. Just because she said that a ghost was good, he slapped her twice. Fang Yunkai, as her father, had never picked her up from school. He also didn't attend her parent-teacher meetings. He also didn't ask about her homework. In her father's eyes, there was only catching ghosts and killing ghosts. Since that was the case, why did she still need such a father? "Cece, Mom only wants you in the future." Facing the daughter that she had lost and regained, Ning Xiangxi understood everything. It was time for that relationship to end. It was time for her and Fang Yunkai to end. She touched the bead around Fang Xiyun's neck. Looking at the crack on the bead, her eyes turned red. "It was this bead that saved you." "Mom, what is this bead?" "Cece, this bead was given to you by Miss Tang." Ning Xiangxi hurriedly said to Fang Xiyun, "Miss Tang said that I would have a daughter and gave this bead to you." Fang Xiyun hesitated for a moment and looked at Tang Guo. "Is it this Miss Tang?" "Yes." Ning Xiangxi said hurriedly with a smile on her face. "She's the legendary ghost." Fang Xiyun's eyes widened. There wasn't fear in her eyes, but surprise. She stared at Tang Guo, unable to take her eyes off her. If Ning Xiangxi hadn't held her, she would have rushed to Tang Guo. She really saw the female ghost in the legends. She touched the cracked bead and looked at Tang Guo as she said, "Thank you." "You're welcome. I gave it to you as a gift back then." Tang Guo smiled. "I didn't expect you to be so lucky." Ning Xiangxi did not believe that it was a casual gift. She had actually thought it through. Regardless of whether Tang Guo could compete with Master Mingxian or not, if she had not informed the other party, this bead would not have fallen into Fang Xiyun's hands. Then today, Fang Xiyun might die. Even if she didn't die, she would encounter many bad things. It was precisely because her mind suddenly became clear at that time and she made that decision that Tang Guo decided to give this bead to her and pointed it to Fang Xiyun. So, this ghost was really powerful. It was normal that Fang Yunkai couldn't win. If it was really an ordinary ghost, would it be able to see things that happened more than 10 years later, and it was about her daughter? Miss Tang, no matter what, thank you very much. Ning Xiangxi and Fang Xiyun bowed to Tang Guo. Chapter 864. Cici and I will always remember you. If you need anything or need beautiful clothes, you can come to us. We will burn them for you regularly. Ning Xiangxi was still embarrassed when she said this. But she had indeed seen Qin Ju take Tang Guo to the mall to buy clothes and burn them for her. Mom, is she the legendary female ghost? Fang Xiyun asked uncertainly. After receiving Ning Xiangxi's confirmation, she finally smiled. Fang Xiyun hesitated for a moment and asked Tang Guo, Auntie Tang, can I take a photo with you? Cici, don't mess around. Ning Xiangxi quickly stopped her. Tang Guo said, okay. Fang Xiyun happily broke free from Ning Xiangxi and insisted that Ning Xiangxi take a photo of her. Seeing that Tang Guo didn't object, Ning Xiangxi also took out her phone to take a photo of them. Qin Ju also let go of Tang Guo. When Fang Xiyun saw that Tang Guo's body had solidified, her eyes were filled with curiosity. She said very seriously, Auntie Tang, you're amazing. When I was very young, I often heard stories about you. I never thought that I would see you in person one day. She also didn't expect that the person who saved her life was actually a ghost. The funny thing was that her father was a ghost hunter who killed ghosts whenever he saw one. She glanced at Fang Yunkai, whose face was pale, and took a few photos with Tang Guo intimately. Ning Xiangxi saw that Fang Yunkai was uncomfortable and even saw that he was staring at Tang Guo. If they weren't here, he would probably have hit her. If it was before today, her heart would ache. But now, forget it. In Ning Xiangxi's eyes, there was only her daughter in her heart. Xiangxi, don't let Cici mess around. Fang Yunkai felt very complicated. On one hand, Tang Guo was his enemy who killed his master. On the other hand, Fang Xiyun was saved by her. Fang Xiyun was so close to Tang Guo, which made him very angry. Ning Xiangxi sneered at Fang Yunkai, what happened between Cici and me has nothing to do with you from now on. Fang Yunkai, go and catch your ghosts. No one will stop you or blame you for being irresponsible in the future. Xiangxi, what do you mean? Ning Xiangxi put down her phone and sneered, what else could it mean? Divorce, Fang Yunkai, I want to divorce you. In the future, you can do whatever you want. Cici and I have nothing to do with you. No one will stop you. You can go wherever you want to catch ghosts. No, Xiangxi. We're definitely getting a divorce. Ning Xiangxi was determined this time. Do you think that what happened to our daughter today has nothing to do with you? Regardless of the cause and effect, if you hadn't slapped Cici twice that day, she wouldn't have run away from home. Fang Yunkai hurriedly explained, that's because she's young and immature. I hit her because, isn't it just because she said something about ghosts not being evil and poked your sore spot? Ning Xiangxi sneered. She held Fang Xiyun, who had returned to her side, and asked Fang Xiyun seriously, Cici, do you object to me divorcing your father? I don't object. Fang Xiyun said with certainty, all these years, he has only been at home for a few days. Mom, I support you. Without him, we can still live. I've always felt that the legendary Auntie Tang is a good ghost. He hit me because of this. He has never fulfilled his responsibilities as a husband and father. Why should we keep him? Ning Xiangxi's heart relaxed. Seeing that Tang Guo was still beside them, she said, I've embarrassed myself in front of you. Chapter 865. Later, Ning Xiangxi and Fang Yunkai divorced. Fang Yunkai didn't agree at first, but later, Ning Xiangxi took Fang Xiyun and left their house. Ning Xiangxi bought a new villa with a perfect security system. He talked to her, and she said that if they didn't get a divorce, she would never see him again. Ning Xiangxi said to him again, "Think about it, Fang Yunkai. You've done all your evil deeds to your daughter. Fang Yunkai, I beg you, let's get a divorce. I can't bear anything happening to Cici. We won't be so lucky every time. Tang Guo will give our Cici a life-saving bead." Fang Yunkai didn't agree at first, but once, when Fang Xiyun came home from school, she was hit by a car that rushed over and knocked into the air. If it weren't for the bead, her life might have been in danger. He also saw that there was another crack on the bead. Ning Xiangxi held the bead and cried as she said to Fang Yunkai, "Did you see that? I don't know how long this bead can last. Fang Yunkai, do you want to kill our daughter?" Fang Yunkai had no choice but to believe it this time. For the first time, he doubted whether he was wrong. During the few days he hesitated, Fang Xiyun had all kinds of accidents. Although there was no more crack on the bead, those small accidents brought a lot of trouble to Fang Xiyun's life. Looking at the scar on Fang Xiyun's arm, he finally compromised and divorced Ning Xiangxi. Ever since the divorce, Fang Xiyun didn't have any problems. When he knew this, Fang Yunkai was a little stunned. He looked at the little ghost under his sword and gritted his teeth. He still wanted to cut it down. "Yunkai, stop." Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded, causing Fang Yunkai to be stunned. He looked up and saw Fang Tianxia floating towards him. "Master, Master. Master, is that you?" Fang Yunkai said in surprise, but he soon felt that something was wrong. "Master, are you a ghost?" Fang Tianxia looked pained. "I'm a ghost." "Why? Are you going to kill me?" "No, Master, why would I kill you? I can't kill you." No matter how much he hated ghosts, he wouldn't kill his master. "Yunkai, you saw that I was a ghost, but you didn't kill me. Then why did you kill all the other ghosts?" Fang Yunkai threw down his sword, "Because they are all harming people." "Master won't harm people." Fang Tianxia's expression was filled with regret. "Yunkai, put down the sword in your hand. Don't be a ghost-catching daoist anymore. This is all my fault. I've led you onto a path of no return." Fang Yunkai shook his head. "No, Master, there are still many ghosts in this world that I need to catch." "Yunkai!" Fang Tianxia shouted loudly and changed his appearance. Fang Yunqi's eyes widened. Wasn't this the ghost that he wanted to kill every time, but couldn't in the end? Fang Tianxia changed back to his original appearance and told Fang Yunkai the original story. "Do you know that for the past 10 years, your master has escaped from your hands several times a year? Master, it's all that female ghost's fault. Otherwise, I wouldn't have failed to recognize you." Fang Tianxia didn't know what to say. "You can't tell right from wrong. I know many ghost friends who didn't do anything. They were all killed by you." Fang Yunkai took a step back. He looked like he was about to break down. "No." He turned around and ran as if he had gone crazy. Chapter 866. Fang Tianxia and Fang Yunqi's conversation was witnessed by Tang Guo and Qin Ju not far away. When she saw Fang Yunqi's worldview crumble, her lips curled up. She looked very happy. That smile was a little naughty and full of vengeance. Qin Ju inadvertently caught a glimpse of it and was mesmerized by her. "Fang Yunqi's cultivation is ruined," Qin Ju said. "Once his Dao heart is broken, he can't take another step forward in this life. He can't catch ghosts anymore." Of course, Fang Yunkai brought all of this upon himself. He held Tang Guo's hand tightly. "Guo Guo, let me take you to the mall. There should be new beautiful dresses coming out this month." "Okay." Tang Guo could feel the fear and reluctance in Qin Ju's heart. She wrapped her arms around his waist. "Don't be afraid. You will meet me in your next life. As long as you are obedient and don't make any mistakes, we can still be together." Qin Ju didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He touched her face. "I will try my best not to make any mistakes." He was afraid that he, who had lost his memories, would really hurt her. What if his next life was a different person from hers? Wouldn't that be impossible? Chin-ju took Tang-guo to the mall and personally picked out the most beautiful dress for her. After being with her for so many years, his taste had become more and more experienced. He didn't need Tang-guo's guidance to be able to find the best way to match her clothes. The way he picked out clothes and matched them made the salesgirls especially amazed. They were already very familiar with this man in daoist robes. He would always come to their mall to buy beautiful clothes. However, they had never seen a woman by his side. They had also asked him who he was buying these beautiful clothes for. At that time, he would give them a warm smile. My wife. When he talked about his wife, the gentle and doting smile on his face really warmed their hearts. Of course, they didn't know that the wife he was talking about was actually standing by his side, looking at him with a serious and focused gaze. He liked her gaze too much. From those beautiful eyes, he could clearly see that he was the only one inside. This gaze made him addicted, intoxicated, and lost himself in it. He didn't want to wake up. She said that she wanted to leave, and from her tone, he could tell that she really had no way to stay. He bought a lot of clothes and burned them in front of her tomb for her. Looking at the clothes on her body that were constantly changing, he smiled from the bottom of his heart. Seeing her happy look, he was also very happy. More than a year later, Tang-guo left this world. When she left, Chin-ju was meditating and cultivating. When he opened his eyes, he felt that his body was empty, and so was his heart. That familiar aura was no longer there. He sat on the hillside and stared blankly at the endless mountain peaks in the distance. After that, he closed his eyes again and continued to cultivate. Occasionally, when he went out to train, he would casually take care of some innocent girls who had been abducted. He would only send them to the police and then leave them with a lonely back view. Later, people gradually discovered that the mysterious female ghost had disappeared, but there seemed to be a Taoist priest who liked to meddle in other people's business. It was said that this daoist was a demon-catching daoist, and he had saved countless people. In the next few decades, he was still around. Once, a girl who had been saved looked at Chin-ju with adoration. When he left, she said, "Why didn't you give me a chance?" Chapter 867. I've never been a meddlesome person, Chin-ju said coldly without turning his head. The girl couldn't help but say, "But you meddled." "That's because she likes it." Chin-ju's cold face warmed up. "I'm just doing what she likes." "Who is she?" "My lover." The girl's face was filled with loneliness. "Where is she?" "She's not here anymore." Chin-ju looked at the sky and raised his hand with a smile. He covered his heart with his hand. "But she's never disappeared from my heart. She's always been here. Until the end of my life, she won't disappear." The girl finally gave up. "Then she's really lucky." "No, I'm the lucky one. I met her." Chin-ju held his sword and took a step into the distance, but his figure was already far away. Later, he met Fang Yunkai. Fang Yunkai lost his cultivation and went crazy. Fang Tianxia had always been by Fang Yunqi's side. A ghost and a lunatic, what a strange combination. He occasionally heard news about Ning Xiangxi and Fang Xiyun. Ning Xiangxi became the most famous philanthropist in the country, but she kept a low profile and was very respected. Fang Xiyun later set up a women's rescue organization, which specialized in saving girls who were accidentally abducted. 100 years later, the world was filled with sunshine. Chin-ju broke the barrier between the ghost world and the human world. He searched for a long time in the ghost world, but he couldn't find Tang-guo. In the end, he went to the reincarnation pool in the ghost world. Under the horrified gaze of the ghost cultivators, he jumped down with a smile. Tang-guo looked at herself. From her fair and slender wrists, she could tell that this body was very young. She opened the curtain and got up. A palace servant was kneeling beside the bed. Seeing her wake up, they lowered their heads. "Your Majesty, are you awake?" Millimeter Tang-guo replied softly. Her natural dignity made the palace servant lower their heads even more. "Your Majesty, do you need some food? Bring some over." She also felt a little hungry. It was best to eat while recalling the plot. She was dressed by the palace servant. Standing in front of the mirror, she looked at her body. Of course, she was very good-looking. Because she was still young, her face looked a little young and tender. This body was about 15 years old. According to the palace servant, she should be the empress of a country. He just didn't know what her current status was or what the situation in the court was like. When the sumptuous food was served, she dismissed everyone and began to eat while recalling the plot of this world. At this moment, the system also appeared excitedly. Host, oh, no, Your Majesty, this time you are the empress. I just browsed through the storyline. You have a harem of beauties. Tangua's hand that was holding the chopsticks paused. Is it a lot? There were a lot of them. I counted, and there should be about 30 to 40 of them. However, it seemed that this body was only 15 years old, so it wasn't the right time to visit them yet. The system was secretly excited. Also, this was a world where women ruled the world. Tangua raised her eyebrows but was not surprised. She took a bite of the food and asked, is it the kind where a man gives birth? System, he's a bit confused. Why is the host focusing on the wrong thing? That's not it. Oh. The lack of interest made the system very depressed. Did it have to be like this? Chapter 868. Dear host, maybe we'll transmigrate to a world where men give birth. Don't be disappointed. Let's accumulate some experience this time. I'm not disappointed, I'm just asking. I've read a lot of books before. Don't all men have to give birth in a female-dominated world? I've always been curious, where do they come from? And the structure of male and female reproductive organs are different. How do women impregnate men? How did such a big egg end up in a man's stomach? The system was stunned. Yeah, how did such a big egg end up in a man's stomach? It doesn't make sense. It said weakly, maybe, in the female-dominated world where men give birth, a woman's egg is only as big as a normal man's sperm. How can a man's sperm be as big as an egg? Then how do they give birth? Don't tell me there's a female reproductive organ in their body structure. If that's the case, they're not men, but intersex. System, a little dizzy. Tangua smiled, feeling the system's confusion. Don't think about it, you won't be able to figure it out even if you think about it. But the system was still confused. So, how did an egg end up in a man's stomach? How did a man give birth to a child? The more it thought about it, the scarier it became. I've received the memory. Tangua said, then ate her food and stopped talking to the system. She let the system ponder over how a man gave birth to a child. In this world, only women were respected. The other biological structures were the same, so she didn't care about it at all. Even if it was different, she didn't have to worry about it. She wouldn't have a child anyway. The country she ruled was called West Saint Empire, a country where women were respected. However, in the other countries on this continent, men were still the most respected. This was also why the biological structures of men and women were normal. Because a long time ago, West Saint Empire wasn't ruled by women, but by men. Later on, the women were oppressed for too long. Finally, a heavenly genius woman appeared and ruled over the West Saint Nation, which was already in internal strife. Of course, the name West Saint Nation was also given later on. Her body was indeed only 15 years old. In West Saint Empire, 16 years old was considered an adult. As the empress, she needed to be an adult before she could have a concubine. But before that, as the empress, she couldn't avoid taking in a lot of people to balance the power in the harem. The original owner ascended the throne at 10 years old and was a very outstanding empress. Her only shortcoming was that she was too young. But the strength left to her by the previous empress was enough to wait for her to grow up. However, something happened while she was growing up. Everything that happened later led to the premature death of this talented young empress. Her death wasn't an accident, but a murder. The people who had plotted against her were the men in her harem and her own sister, Tang Nuoyu, the moon prince of the West Saint nation. But to be exact, this Tang Nuo, Empress, Empress Empress, Empress Empress. Because Empress Empress, Empress, Tang Empress, Empress Empress, Empress, Empress Empress, Empress, Empress Empress, Empress Empress. To Meme Empress TS Empress Empress Meme 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 Menti. Chapter 869. Especially this kind of person who had been stupid for more than 10 years, suddenly became a normal person. As long as the Empress was not crazy, she would definitely send people to monitor her. At this time, Tang Nuoyu's husband, as well as some people who found Tang Nuoyu very interesting, secretly told Tang Nuoyu that the Empress sent people to monitor her. This made Tang Nuoyu afraid of the Empress from the beginning, and even thought of many schemes and tricks in her mind. Those men with ulterior motives approached Tang Nuoyu step by step, and also designed all kinds of weaknesses of the Empress to harm Tang Nuoyu. Even the crime of Tang Nuoyu's original stupidity was put on the Empress. In fact, Tang Nuoyu was born stupid, and did not care about the Empress at all. But those men, in order to achieve their goal of overthrowing the West Saint nation that respected women, used Tang Nuoyu, this naive and sweet girl, and used Tang Nuoyu to openly deal with the young Empress. The Empress's harem, Tang Nuoyu's harem, the sons of some ministers in the court, and spies from the neighboring countries, all joined in this conspiracy. The Empress noticed that something was wrong, but it was too late. These men were all very smart, and when they joined forces, how could she, a 15-year-old Empress, deal with them? Especially, the people around her were also controlled by these men. Tang Nuoyu thought that those men really loved her. In addition, the men had shown her a lot of evidence that the Empress wanted to kill her. So, she let them plot these, and waited for the dream of being the Empress in the future, and hugging left and right. She did succeed, and she became the most noble Empress. But she also failed, and on the night of her ascension, when she was with her husbands, she was pierced through the heart by a sword. Those men showed their true faces, and they all mocked her naivety, ridiculous. Tang Nuoyu heard their original plan from the mouths of these men, and died with hatred. She hated these men who played with her feelings. And the West Saint nation also came to an end, divided by these men, once again becoming chaotic. Neither the Empress nor Tang Nuoyu knew what happened after that. Dear host, how do you feel about this world? The system asked, have you ever thought of trying another man? Your cutie might not be around. Tang Guo didn't say anything. The system continued to sow discord between them. Wouldn't it be boring to eat the same thing all the time? It was actually not bad to have a change of taste. Tongzi, you just want to watch the show. Are you in love and want to find a female system? Alright, next time we meet a female system, we'll tie her up and do whatever you want to her. Host, it's not like that. Just pretend that I didn't say anything. The system was a little scared. What female system? It had no such thoughts at all. 2 strings of data falling in love, it didn't think it was fun at all. Compared to finding a partner, he still hoped to find a system that he could eat in one bite and help him level up. Even if the other party was a girl, he would still choose to eat her. Leveling up was more important than finding a partner. Tang Guo ate her food slowly. I'll make a few lists. Help me monitor them and see what they're doing. Host, please instruct. Nan Yunchuan, Su Qing, Shan Ji, Yin Qiu, Xiao Jin. These 5 men were the main culprits of the conspiracy. Among them, Nan Yunchuan and Su Qing were both people in her harem. Su Qing was Tang Nuoyu's husband, Yin Qiu was the young master of Tang Nuoyu's residence, and Xiao Jin was a hostage sent by the state of Qi. Xiao Jin was a person with strategy and means. He joined mainly to borrow the power of the West Saint nation to help him take back the state of Qi. Chapter 870. Xiao Jin was also the man that Tang Nuoyu liked the most. However, it was this ruthless person who stabbed Tang Nuoyu to death with a knife, causing Tang Nuoyu's heart to break. After Tang Guo said the names, The system had already monitored the men. With the increase in energy, he could now cover more and more places. It was not a problem to cover 2 or 3 cities at the moment, not to mention the range of the Imperial City and the Imperial Palace. Tang Guo first looked at her harem for a while. Nan Yunchuan was drinking tea in the palace and playing chess alone. This was his hobby. This guy had a lot of schemes and tricks, and his stomach was full of bad water. Su Qing was playing the zither, and there was a bit of worry between her brows. However, the cold light that flashed through her eyes was really shocking. When she was about to turn the scene away, she saw a man practicing swordsmanship in a slightly more luxurious palace. She did not look away. She narrowed her eyes and stared at the man. Then, she said to the system, "Zoom in, I want to take a closer look at this guy." "Okay, host." When she saw this handsome face, Tang Guo found the other party's identity from her memory. This body's imperial husband, Jing Cheng. He was a real man who liked to play with swords and guns. He had longed to go out and fight since he was young. However, his status was noble. In the end, he was chosen to become the Empress of the West Holy Kingdom, which was her body's imperial husband. It was not that men could not be officials, but it was 100 times more difficult than women to be officials. It was not that they could not join the army, but it was still very difficult to be promoted. In addition, after ruling for thousands of years, women were getting stronger and stronger. The imperial court had long been dominated by women, and there were more and more women in the army, and they were getting stronger and stronger. Men were getting weaker and weaker, marginalized, and their status was getting lower and lower. Gradually, they did not leave the house and were raised as daughters. Some men were even raised as delicate grass, the kind that would fall when the wind blew. However, most of those were small families. But some women liked those delicate grass, teasing them and treating them as playthings. It was similar to how men treated women in the world of men, except that the gender was changed. "Host, is there a problem with this imperial husband, Jing Cheng?" the system asked curiously. Tang Guo smiled. "There's no problem. I just think that he looks especially handsome when he's wielding his sword." The system was horrified. Was it? "My dear host is really going to fall in love with someone else. Bah, that's not right. The great host doesn't remember the past. He was actually a little handsome." The system hurriedly praised. "All right, turn the camera to Tang Nuoyu. At this time, she should have transmigrated here. Let's see what the people in her residence are doing." As for Tang Nuoyu, in this story, she was at most a little stupid. However, the intelligence of those men was indeed very high. They were all experts in scheming. Tang Nuoyu was a modern woman who had just graduated from university and had not experienced any hardships. Suddenly, she was in a different place. She had to live in fear all day long. Suddenly, a few elegant men appeared. They talked sweet nothings to her all day long and looked at her with adoration. Which woman wouldn't be moved? Step by step, she fell into the trap of these men. As a modern woman, how could she have expected the ancient people to be so scheming? So, in the end, she was still a pitiful person. She was just a tool used by these scary men. Chapter 871. When the camera turned to Tang Nuoyu's house, Tang Guo was stunned when she saw a certain scene. The system sensed Tang Guo's surprise and stared at it. It was also stunned. "Dear host, what's going on? Things don't look good." The system was saying that according to the plot, Tang Nuoyu shouldn't be treating Yin Qiu like this at this time, right? Tang Guo looked at Yin Qiu kneeling under the sun. His face was pale and there were whip marks on his body. She narrowed her eyes. She could tell that he had been kneeling for a long time. "Look at Tang Nuoyu." The system followed her instructions and turned the camera to Tang Nuoyu's house. When they saw Tang Nuoyu, the two of them suddenly realized something. Especially when they heard Tang Nuoyu's soft and hateful mutterings, they understood what was going on. "Since I, Tang Nuoyu, have been reborn, I won't fall for the tricks of you men." Tang Nuoyu looked at the mirror. Her face was pale and there was a loneliness after despair in her eyes. "If you want to overthrow the West Saint Nation, You have to see if I, Tang Nuoyu, agree. In this life, as long as I, Tang Nuoyu, am here, you men can kneel under a woman's skirt. But how am I going to tell the Empress this now? I used to be a fool. If I say this rashly, the Empress won't believe me and will suspect that I have ulterior motives. Tang Nuoyu fell into deep thought. It seems that I still have to use those men to achieve my goal. It's best to let the Empress discover those men's goal herself. Maybe I can first feign civility with those men and infiltrate their inner circle. They think that I'm easy to fool. Finally, I'll work with the Empress from the inside and see if we can't kill them. Tang Guo laughed when she saw this. That's fun. I'm starting to like this Tang Nuoyu. Actually, it's not that troublesome. If she says it, I'll just go with the flow. However, according to her experience, she should be careful and take every step carefully because she has already died twice. The second time, she was killed by a man's scheme. It's time for her to grow up. Tang Nuoyu giggled in front of the mirror until her face was cramping. This time, I must hug the Empress's thigh tightly. If those men hadn't lied to me in my previous life, how could such a smart and capable girl like the Empress lose? Men are all pigs. I must have been possessed to believe they're sweet nothings. Tang Nuoyu pursed her lips. And that Xiao Jin, I'm going to kill him in this life. Tang Guo laughed as she watched. She was overjoyed. Keep an eye on Tang Nuoyu too. See what she's doing. I'll send 2 people over in 2 days to help her secretly. After Tang Nuoyu finished her giggling, she turned around and skipped out of the room with the whip. Looking at Tang Nuoyu's silly performance, Tang Guo almost spat. You're good at pretending. You have a bright future. Tang Nuoyu waved the whip in front of Yin Qiu. Yin Qiu's body trembled subconsciously. When he saw Tang Nuoyu smiling at him foolishly, he felt his hair stand on end. Is it fun? Yin Qiu, this prince is here to play with you. Ha ha, play with the whip. Let's play with the whip. Then, Tang Guo saw Yin Qiu's face turn pale and hopeless. He wanted to escape. Unfortunately, Tang Nuoyu's people were all loyal to her. If the prince wanted to play, they would definitely not let this lowly servant escape. The 2 of them held down Yin Qiu. Tang Nuoyu's eyes flashed with excitement. She laughed happily and raised the whip to whip Yin Qiu. Ha ha, fun, fun. Yin Qiu, you're so fun. Tang Nuoyu's heart at this time, stinky man, how dare you plot against me? I'll beat you to death. Chapter 872. Slap, slap. The sound of the whip hitting the ground rang out intermittently, accompanied by Yin Qiu's groans. His arms were pressed down by 2 strong women, and he was unable to resist at all. Even if he wanted to resist, he did not dare to. In the Moon King's residence, he was only a servant of the idiot Moon King. If he dared to be disrespectful to the Moon King, he did not know how the people left behind by the late emperor would torture him. He hated this idiot very much, but he still had to pretend to be miserable and stubborn on the surface. Tang Nuoyu looked at Yin Qiu's pitiful and loving appearance. She mocked him in her heart and wanted to laugh out loud. This man gave people the feeling that he had a pitiful background and made people pity him. In the past, when she heard about Yin Qiu's background, although she did not like Yin Qiu the most, she treated him well. In the end, when she was stabbed by Xiao Jin, she only saw mockery and ridicule on Yin Qiu's face. Yin Qiu's words to her were also heart-wrenching. Who do you think you are to like this young master? If it was not for the sake of achieving great things, why would this young master lower himself to you, stupid woman? At that time, she could not see her facial expression, but she thought that her eyeballs must have popped out and she must have looked very ugly. She was stupid and muddle-headed. Of course, after experiencing life and death this time, she was very clear about what kind of person she was. She was stupid and selfish. Wasn't this human instinct? She was just an ordinary person without any noble character. Last time, she was schemed to death by them. That was because she was stupid, because she did not understand people's hearts. She deserved it. Now, She would only choose the direction that was beneficial to her and take revenge at the same time. Since the heavens gave her another choice, she would not waste this opportunity. She would properly settle the score with these stinky men. What the hell was love? These men had already told her clearly that it was useless and could even kill people. The more she thought, the angrier she became, and the harder she whipped Yin Qiu's body. In the end, Yin Qiu fainted from the pain. She had a silly smile on her face as she whipped the corpse-like Yin Qiu. Yin Qiu, why are you sleeping like that? Quickly get up and play with this prince. Woo, Yin Qiu won't play with this prince anymore. Yin Qiu, quickly get up and play with this prince. The people sent by the late emperor to the Tang Nuoyu would of course do things according to their master's wishes. They turned around and brought a bucket of cold water, intending to splash Yin Qiu awake. This was what Tang Nuoyu had expected a long time ago. If she had not been so stupid as to be bewitched by these men, she would have let these masters sent by the late emperor to listen to their orders, help them pass on messages, and use these people to frame the empress. With the empress's intelligence and talent, these people probably wouldn't succeed so easily. It was because of her stupidity that these people were being used by these men. Therefore, when these people wanted to wake Yin Qiu up, she only felt excitement in her heart. Your Highness, Yin Qiu is very tired and has fallen asleep. Let me play with you, okay? The sudden voice made Tang Nuoyu very excited. That's fucking great. This prince didn't go to you, but you came to me yourself. Then I won't be polite. Tang Nuoyu smiled foolishly and waved the whip. Her eyes were fixed on Dan Ji, who was the husband of this body of hers, as if there was a green light in her eyes. When Dan Ji saw the look in Tang Nuoyu's eyes, there was a trace of regret in her heart. Chapter 873. The fool in front of him was not a normal person. Looking at the bloody whip, Dan Ji summoned all his courage to not turn around and run away. Dan Ji. Tang Nuoyu imitated the fool in his memory and cracked the whip on the ground, making a loud noise. Dan Ji, do you want to play with me? Dan Ji looked at Yin Qiu, who was dying, and finally nodded with a smile that he thought was appropriate. Yes, I like to play with you. That's great. Dan Ji, come and play with me. Come on. Tang Nuoyu had a villain in his heart and couldn't wait to wave the whip. Come on, I'll play you to death. Dan Ji's feet seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds, and he dragged himself to Tang Nuoyu step by step. Tang Guo, who was secretly watching all this, was amused when he saw Dan Ji's legs trembling. Interesting. Dear host, are you not going to make trouble for Tang Nuoyu? After all, the death of the original host had something to do with her. Tang Guo smiled. I didn't forget. Let me think about what to do later. I still have to take revenge. System, okay, I shouldn't have reminded you. How could a person like the host forget about revenge? I'm talkative. Dear host is so vengeful. Dan Ji thought that Tang Nuoyu whipped Yin Qiu only because Yin Qiu was a lowly servant and he was the husband of a princess. He wouldn't be treated the same way. His relationship with Tang Nuoyu was quite good, and she liked to play with him, so it was unlikely that she would actually use her whip on him. However, when the whip came down and landed directly on his face, he felt that he was wrong. How could such a fool remember who he was? She only thought of him as a fun toy. Dan Ji hated her, but the pain in his body made him forget about it for the time being. Tang Nuoyu didn't care. This Dan Ji didn't fool her. Like Yin Qiu, he was not a good person. He didn't like her, but he smiled at her and was gentle to her. He made her fall in love with him and finally abandoned her. Tang Nuoyu didn't show any mercy. She hit Dan Ji until he fainted. Her hand was a little bruised. Then she gave up, turned around, and skipped away with a silly smile. She was a fool now. How could she care about others? How could she know that a whip would hurt people? Yin Qiu slightly woke up. Before Tang Nuoyu left, she looked back and smiled foolishly. Yin Qiu, I'll play with you tomorrow. Yin Qiu, who had just recovered, fainted. Tomorrow? Forget it. He would not come out tomorrow. Tang Guo watched as Tang Nuoyu returned to her room. She grimaced in pain as she held her bruised hand. She secretly muttered to herself about how to restore her brain. She held her chin and narrowed her eyes. System, I'm guessing that the great host is planning something devious. All right, you keep watch here. If there's any movement from those men, Tongzi, tell me immediately. Okay, dear host. Tang Guo thought of the man who was dancing with the sword. She got up and was about to have a look. Unexpectedly, a servant came to report, Your Majesty, young Master Nan wants to see you. Let him in. Tang Guo had no choice but to sit down. She listened to the sound of light footsteps gradually approaching. Soon, she saw a handsome man with a smile on his face walk in. Nan Yunchuan first held his fists and bowed 90 degrees to Tang Guo. Yunchuan greets Your Majesty. Rise. Chapter 874. Your Majesty, the weather is clear today. Do you want to go to the Imperial Garden with Yunchuan to enjoy the flowers and tea? Nan Yunchuan's smile made people feel very comfortable. He had a pair of peach blossom eyes. When he looked at anyone, it made people feel that he was looking at that person with deep affection. As an empress, the original owner was not yet an adult, so she didn't know much about love. But because of Nan Yunchuan's initiative, she inevitably had more impression of Nan Yunchuan. She was familiar with him and had a deeper impression of him. In her harem, she attached more importance to him. When an emperor attached importance to one of them, it meant that this person could get a lot of things. Nan Yunchuan not only made people feel comfortable when he spoke, but he was also very talented. He was proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. After he entered the palace, the original owner saw him the most in the harem. Since Nan Yunchuan invited her, Tang Guo naturally had to go. She glanced at Nan Yunchuan, who never stopped smiling. This person was a smiling tiger. In front of the original owner, he gave a lot of gentleness, but when he turned around, he was full of schemes. The original owner was young. Although she already had a firm and cold heart of an emperor, she was still a little girl. She may not have any feelings for Nan Yunchuan, but she really put this person in her heart. If she didn't have a little more trust in Nan Yunchuan, she wouldn't have lost so quickly. Who would have thought that Nan Yunchuan, a servant in the harem, would have the idea of overthrowing the empress's rule? Since it's Yunchuan's invitation, how can I not go? Tang Guo's lips unconsciously evoked a smile. The empress's smile was always shallow and restrained. Because she was the empress had taught her since she was a child not to show too much expression, so as not to be guessed by others. In other words, even if her heart was in a panic, she had to smile on the surface. Even if she was very happy, she wouldn't laugh like ordinary people. Her eyes would only curve slightly and the corners of her lips would rise. Of course, this was limited to the servants who were familiar with her, like Nan Yunchuan. If it was in the court, she wouldn't show too much expression at all. She would always look indifferent, like a little girl who didn't know how to laugh or cry. The late emperor only had 2 daughters. One of them was Tang Nuoyu, who was a fool. The other one was Tang Guo. Back then, the late emperor had been injured in the fight for the throne, and his lifespan was not long. His eldest daughter was born mentally retarded because she was drugged. Later, in order to give birth to a healthy heir, she nursed her body for many years and finally gave birth to Tang Guo. But this time, her vitality was almost depleted. However, she still persisted until Tang Guo was 10 years old. She pushed this young girl onto the throne before leaving. The 2 of them walked to the imperial garden one after another, with a large number of palace servants following behind them. Nan Yunchuan smiled the whole time and said some funny words. At most, it could make Tang Guo smile faintly. But even so, Nan Yunchuan understood that he should leave a deeper impression on the empress. Of course, his goal was to make the empress trust him. Only if the empress trusted him would he have the chance to overthrow this country ruled by a woman and allow men to stand at the pinnacle of power and rise in status. Tang Guo glanced at Nan Yunchuan from the corner of her eyes and suddenly asked, Yunchuan, Are you used to it in the palace? Used to it? Where your majesty is, how can I not be used to it? Thank your majesty for your concern. Yunchuan is a little flattered. Chapter 875. Nan Yunchuan smiled ingratiatingly, without losing his demeanor. There were probably not many women who did not like people like him. Tang Guo smiled faintly. That's good. What I mean is, if you miss your family, I can allow you to leave the palace for 2 days. Millimeter, I'll give you the time to contact, pass on the news, and discuss the plan. Does your majesty like flowers? Nan Yunchuan suddenly said, pointing to a blooming flower, Your majesty's face is as beautiful as this flower. However, your majesty is more beautiful than the flower. Your majesty's beauty is not like a flower that has a flowering period. In Yunchuan's heart, your majesty will continue to be beautiful like this. System. Host, this guy is really glib-tongued. His words are so greasy. Tang Guo glanced at the flower. It was a beautiful red rose. She said indifferently, it's all right, but compared to flowers, I prefer flower tea. Even the words of love that Nan Yunchuan had prepared for a long time were cut off at this time. He was praising His Majesty, saying that she was more beautiful than flowers, and that her beauty lasted longer than flowers. However, His Majesty's focus was really strange. He actually said that she liked flower tea. But Nan Yunchuan quickly reacted and laughed heartily. Unfortunately, Yunchuan knows some small tricks to make flower tea. When your majesty is free, you can come to Yunchuan's place and have Yunchuan make you a cup of flower tea. All right. Tang Guo replied indifferently, and changed the topic to Nan Yunchuan's return home to visit his family. Yunchuan, do you miss home? When you want to go back, send someone to tell me. Then, pick some jade artifacts and send them to your father. Nan Yunchuan really did not expect that Tang Guo was serious about letting him go back to visit his family. Men like them, from the day they entered the palace, basically did not expect to go home. But today, His Majesty actually wanted him to go home to visit his family. Was this sincere, or was it a test? Your Majesty, Yunchuan. Don't you want to? Tang Guo looked at Nan Yunchuan. I don't think anyone doesn't want to go home. I heard from Lord Nan that your father's health hasn't been good recently. Are you really not going back to take a look? When we go back, we will order people to bring back some medicinal herbs that can nourish the body. Nan Yunchuan was startled for a moment, but when he remembered that his father was indeed in poor health, he couldn't think too much about it. He hurriedly bowed 90 degrees and said, Thank you, Your Majesty. The corner of Tang Guo's mouth curled up slightly, but Nan Yunchuan did not see the deep smile in her eyes. He was still a little excited. He had been in the palace for a long time, and he could finally go back and see his father. His only concern was his father's health. It was also because of his father that he decided to overthrow the country that was ruled by women. His father came from a small family and was raised as a delicate boy. Later, he was sent to his mother as a plaything. Ever since he was young, his father had taught him not to lose his manly aura. His mother had never valued his father and only treated him as a plaything. Her father was not treated well in the mansion. However, ever since he had curried favor with the Empress, his father's life had become much better for the Empress's sake. Nan Yunchuan thought about it for a long time. After thinking about his father, he forgot about his gratitude to Tang Guo just now. No matter how the Empress treated him, he would overthrow this country. He had to kill her with his own hands. Chapter 876. If she wanted to blame someone, she could only blame herself for being the Empress of the West Saint Empire. The Empress of the West Saint Empire was destined to be sacrificed in this battle. Yunchuan, you're distracted. Nan Yunchuan was awakened by Tang Guo's emotionless voice. How could he be distracted at this time? He hurriedly apologized. Your Majesty, please forgive me. It's Yunchuan's fault. It's fine. Are you missing your father? I can understand, because I often miss my Empress mother. Nan Yunchuan smiled. Thank you for your understanding, Your Majesty. After that, Nan Yunchuan accompanied Tang Guo to stroll around the imperial garden. Tang Guo's words were full of importance and concern for Nan Yunchuan. Nan Yunchuan's mind was almost disturbed by the Empress's indifferent tone, but with genuine concern. It was clearly him who came to confuse the Empress. Why was his heart almost disturbed? Especially the Empress's eyes, compared to others, were more majestic. She was focused and serious when looking at him. There was often a faint smile in her eyes. When she mentioned his past, her eyes would light up. Nan Yunchuan was not a fool. On the contrary, he was very smart. The Empress's intimate behavior made him believe that the Empress was really moved by him. Otherwise, as an Empress, she would not show such an expression to him. He was a little excited. The Empress was moved by him. He really did not expect it to be so much ahead of schedule. That's right. The Empress was only 15 years old. She was just a little girl, not an adult yet. There was no problem in dealing with state affairs, but she was still a blank when it came to feelings. He had worked so hard for so long. If he did not succeed, then there would be something wrong with the Empress. Tang Guo saw the deep thought and excitement in Nan Yunchuan's eyes. The corners of her mouth rose slightly. Be proud. I will let you know what it means to be conceited and what it means to fail miserably. After a long time, the two parted. Nan Yunchuan left with light steps. He seemed to walk with the wind. In a place where no one could see, he could not stop smiling. If he received the Empress's sincerity, his dream would be one step closer. Suddenly, he thought of the Empress's young face, that faint and happy smile, and that pair of overly focused eyes. He was a little absent-minded. He quickly shook his head. He was someone who wanted to overthrow the West Saint nation. He could not be soft-hearted. Even if the Empress was innocent, she could only sacrifice herself for the sake of the future status of all the men. Dear host, he seemed to have hesitated before. I only hesitated. Tang Guo didn't miss the expression on Nan Yunchuan's face. What should be done will still be done. Have you forgotten what happened in the past? If these men want to overthrow the rule of women, they must take my life. Only then will they be able to intimidate the world. The system sighed. Then he was a little pitiful. Now that the great host was here, wouldn't they be miserable? He was curious as to how his host was going to deal with these people. But looking at his host's sinister smile, he decided not to ask. It was necessary to maintain a sense of mystery. There was no point in revealing spoilers. Just like that, Tang Guo got used to her identity as an empress on the same day she arrived in West Saint Empire. Moreover, she was an empress with more than 30 husbands, although none of them had anything to do with her. She followed the habits and time of the original owner, going up and down. Every day when she passed by some places, she would see many elegantly dressed husbands. They all seemed to be doing their own things. No one saw her figure. Chapter 877. Some people left a side profile for her. In fact, this was their best side profile. Some people were reciting poems in the distance. Their voices were hearty and pleasant. They were all reading to her. Some people were painting in the imperial garden. From time to time, they would spread out the painting, and the position was even facing the place where she passed by. In fact, their eyes were all glancing at her from the corner of their eyes. Host, are you feeling good? Are you like those women fighting for favor in the harem? In fact, if you change roles, everyone is the same. Regardless of whether the host was feeling good or not, he was still feeling quite good. Many women were also talented, but in the end, they still had to use their appearance to confuse the king. Men used their talent to show their charm, and appearance was slightly secondary. Tang Guo passed by expressionlessly, ignoring these men who wanted to seduce her. Without looking back, she could feel the disappointed gazes of a large group of people. In fact, she was laughing crazily in her heart. To be honest, she was also a little happy. It turned out that men fighting for favor was like this. Until she heard a sad zither sound and unconsciously stopped. Of course, she didn't want to stop, but because she was somewhat interested in the owner of the zither sound, she still gave the other party face. Standing by the side of the flowers, she stared at the person in the pavilion and listened carefully to the other party's zither sound. The other party seemed to be intoxicated by his own zither sound and did not notice Her Majesty the Empress not far away. When the zither sound stopped and he saw Tang Guo, his expression was a little frightened. He hurriedly came down and bowed to Tang Guo. "Su Qing greets Your Majesty. Get up." Tang Guo waved her hand. "Just now, I heard sadness from your zither sound. Did you think of something sad? Can you tell me? It's just a small matter. It's better not to disturb Your Majesty. Speak, I'm willing to listen." The corners of Tang Guo's mouth rose. Su Qing lowered her head and did not see her expression. In those eyes, there was a hint of teasing. At this time, she suddenly felt another special gaze. She subconsciously looked for it and saw a person by the lake. That person was tall and slender, even taller than the average man. He looked at Tang Guo with a pair of calm eyes. There was a strange, curious, and probing look in his eyes. Tang Guo smiled at that person. Jing Cheng did not expect that the Empress, who usually did not show much emotion, would actually show him a bright smile. Yes, this smile was too dazzling. His heart skipped a beat at that moment. Tang Guo put away her smile and no longer looked at Jing Cheng. Instead, she turned to look at Su Qing. "Su Qing, tell me, what sad thing do you have? I want to hear it." "Yes." Su Qing sighed. It was Su Qing who thought of her brother who had passed away a long time ago. In a few days, it will be the anniversary of her brother's death. It's just that Su Qing has already entered the palace and can't pay respects to her brother, so she's a little sad. Tang Guo almost laughed out loud. What brother? He clearly knew that Nan Yunchuan could go back to visit his family, but he couldn't hold back and was ready to go out together. The two of them had already discussed it. So that's how it is. Tang Guo frowned. Then it's my negligence. How about this? I allow you to go back and pay respects to your brother. 2 days, is that enough? Your Majesty, Tang Guo did not want to talk to him anymore, so she said directly, I won't take back my words. You pack up and pick a day to leave the palace. Su Qing was stunned for a moment. Tang Guo had already left, so she happily thanked her. She looked deeply at Tang Guo and turned to leave. Tang Guo turned a corner and saw Jing Cheng again. Imperial husband, why are you here? She asked with a smile. The corner of Jing Cheng's mouth twitched. Was this their Majesty? You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.